Okay, welcome everybody. Let's let everybody in. Welcome. Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome, Brittany. Hi, Elizabeth. Welcome. Hey, Rich.
Hey.
Hi, David. How are you? Hey, Alex. Hey, Brock. Welcome. Thanks for joining, everyone. Glad you can make it. Hi, Jackie. Thanks for being here. Hi, Kate. Welcome. Hi, Eugenie. Welcome. Welcome, everybody.
Doesn't seem to be working.
Here, Eugenie, I'm going to put you on mute while you figure.
There we go.
Go. Welcome. We've got music today. This means it's going to be an exciting session. This means there's going to be energy. I hope you brought as much energy as I am bringing to this session. This is a fun topic. This is something that I've seen students enjoy a lot that I hope that you will enjoy as well. Admitting folks now. And how about we do this to start? Would you be willing to share your name, location, and maybe the school or organization that you're with in the chat? Alex, maybe you can kick things off and model that for everyone. So if you can share in the chat where you are today, the school you're with, or organization, that'd be great. Hey, Andrea, welcome. Thanks for being here. Hi, Michelle. Welcome,
Hello.
April. Hi, Frank. Welcome. Hey, Kate. We'll get started in a minute here as people join us, but thanks for the intros. It's always nice to see who's where. Hey, Macy, welcome.
Your own walk today, and we agree with that.
Somebody's not on mute, and I'm going to try to help with that. I'm not sure who it is, but. Okay. Eli, you made it. Thank you. Pleasure to have you here. Thanks a lot. We're just doing intros, by the way. If you just joined, if you want to put your name and school in the chat, we're going to get started right away and keep those introductions coming in. Okay, fantastic. Great. So big topic today, mission before major. I can't wait to speak about this and hear your perspectives on this way of looking at higher ed and careers. And if you just joined, please introduce yourself in the chat. You are very welcome here. If you are a seasoned pro, or it is your first day during career development, or you're just interested in the field. I know some folks that are not career advisors, but they think mission before major is a very interesting idea. You are also welcome here today. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Here's what I wanted to cover. What's this concept of mission before major? How does it work? How can it help you? Second, how could you use this approach with the students that you serve? And I'm going to give you some resources today that you can use if you want to explore this approach with your students. And David, we can hear you, but maybe you can't hear us. Okay, so gotcha. Thank you. And then I want to leave some space for this for discussion. And I know it might be funny to ask 33 different people who may not have met yet to discuss and comment. But this is really the goal of this workshop, by the way. I have information and resources that I've compiled, and I've got some prompts, but I would love for this idea to come alive based on you. You know your students, you know their obstacles, you know what's best to serve them. So I'd love to hear you weigh in on the concept, mission before major. Is this going to work or not work with your folks? And then you'll get to have a whole bunch of people weigh in on your point of view, and hopefully you leave the session with some new ideas and perspectives and approaches. Okay, if you haven't met SparkPath yet, we help universities, colleges, and high schools prepare their students for meaningful careers. And we do that by helping them choose challenges instead of job titles to fit into. And that's one of the reasons I love meeting with career advisors, because they make career development come alive for their students. The idea for this session came behind, I would say, my most popular LinkedIn post to date, where I simply asked, what if we picked a mission instead of a major? And I got great responses. If you look in the bottom right corner of your screen, 44 people reposted this message. So I think it struck a chord for folks, and I was very curious as to why. And in this post, you don't need to read it, I'll tell you what it is. The inspiration comes from a project called Stanford 2025, where a group of students at Stanford projected in a creative design exercise what the year 2100 could look like in higher ed. So you with me so far? So they're imagining, they're thinking, and one of the ideas that they came up with is, what if we had students declare a mission instead of a major? Here's one from their website. I'm learning business management to organize health data. It's not my favorite mission because it's very broad. However, this is a very cool picture. Look at that guy's glasses. He looks excited. So I decided to include it. That's just one example. Here's the principle that they're trying to share with this idea. On the left, you've got the from, and on the right, you've got the to. Okay, so where are we coming from? Students declaring majors and focusing their studies around set requirements. And sometimes we know this, students declare a major without a clear reason. And even the major that we declare is not necessarily directly related with the name of our first job. And students find this complicated. But what if students declared missions and then they thought about their disciplinary pursuit and the purpose that fueled it? Could this lead to more meaning, more impact? That's the question they're asking. And it's the same question I'm going to ask you folks as well. And I've included links, by the way, in my presentation. So if ever some of you are interested in looking at the specific resources I'm sharing today, I want you to have access to my slides, and there they are directly in the chat. Okay, what would be the benefits? If students declared a mission before a major, this would give them a unique exploration window that could help them see the bigger picture. Why are they here? They could get a better idea of what their students are for. It would also help them map skills to outcomes, which will likely lead to a better choice. If you know the outcome, the impact you want to have on the world, the skills it takes to get there, you'd be more likely to make a better choice, wouldn't you, of your major. It could also increase student motivation because it adds a why for them, a why. Okay, one of the comments that I like that I got on LinkedIn is Teresa's. I want to read this out to you. This makes me think of today's entrepreneurial focus on finding your why. This reminds me of Simon Sinek, by the way. It only makes sense that we teach young adults and anyone wanting career change to develop their why first, according to Teresa. And then her comment is, I imagine retention, graduation, and employment rates would increase with a mission rather than a major model of higher ed. I like this connection. You know, we think in career development that we have an impact on retention, graduation, and employment rates, and I think we are right that we do. And I think the mission versus major approach could do that. So who should think about doing this? To me, when you're thinking about students to explore this with, It's worth thinking because I don't think any strategy or career approach is for everyone. So a person who has an obstacle that would benefit from this, for example, if you see a student with a lack of purpose, confusion, or they're disconnected, maybe this is someone that could benefit from this. You also want a student that has a certain level of openness, a desire for more than the current approach. And you also need to introduce this with the right time and opportunity in mind. This may not be a 5-minute conversation if you want to help someone declare a mission. It's probably going to be bigger than that. So those are a few factors to consider when you think about who. Now, I want to get into the mechanics of how would we do this? And I'm going to ask you along the way to share your questions, comments, reactions in the chat. But let me go through these pointers as to how to, and then I'd love to get your perspective on how you think this could help your students. Number one, before you start, I think you need to showcase the value of choosing a mission. This is a new idea, so students would need to know, why would I go with this approach? So how would you do that? Well, they're coming from a very traditional approach, right? And one of the ways to show them the value of doing something different is maybe question the traditional approach, focusing only on job titles, which is maybe where they're coming from. Maybe their experience in high school has been about identifying interesting job titles. And we know that they only know a fraction of what's available out there. Maybe pointing that out to them. Maybe suggesting to them that most people will hold several different job titles during their lives. We should also tell them that some job titles will change, others don't exist yet. Breaking the connection that they have with, the certainty needed by choosing one job title, I think is necessary for them to consider an alternative approach. Once they see the limits of using job titles at the heart of the approach, then they might be open to something else. Otherwise, this whole idea of mission might not fit if they're locked into choosing one job title for life. So maybe when we want to break that, play with that a little bit first. Once you've done that, I think it's useful to have a custom introduction that's connected to their problem. It's useful to share a story with them and then to ask them a buy-in question. A lot of you on the call are highly trained coaches. So a lot of these mechanics might look familiar to a lot of the coaching techniques that you use with your students. So let's go through them together. Here's some language that you can feel free to borrow and modify as you see fit. Listen to the words I'm using with a student. It sounds like you are discouraged because you don't know which major to pick and you don't know where to start. Did I get that right? What am I doing here? I'm empathizing. I want to meet them where they're at. I'm doing a custom introduction that meets them where they are. I want to make sure that they know I understand where they're at. And why do I bother with, did I get that right? Well, I'll tell you, it's easy to miss the mark. I don't know how I would rate myself. Maybe I shoot 50% with, when I try to reach out and, empathize with someone. Maybe I didn't understand what their issue was, so I want to check in. So now that I know where they're at, here comes part of my pitch. Great. I'd like to show you a powerful way to pick a major that I think you would enjoy. I'm going to tell you a story about a student, and then you can tell me if I'm using the same approach. You can tell me if using the same approach would help you. Does that work for you? So notice how I'm going slowly. I'm not selling mission before major yet. I'm not using those words. I'm just laying the groundwork. I'm going to share a story. And then does that work for you? That's the buying question. I'm taking the time to do this work up top because I'm building commitment. I'm building interest in the student. That's the custom introduction connected to their problem. Next would be the story. And I'd love for you to eventually build a series of stories. You likely have a series of similar stories with students, but here's what it could sound like. I worked with a student who had no idea what they wanted to do. And here I write, I had no idea what they wanted to do because I'm trying to borrow language from students who just shared the issue with you, right? So you want to customize this for a similar problem to them. So I worked with a student who had a similar problem than you. They had no idea what they wanted to do, but they knew they wanted blank. Again, I want to repeat what the student said they wanted. Maybe the student wants purpose. Maybe they want something meaningful. Maybe they want a high-paying job. Maybe they want, there's something very specific to work for a very specific company. I want to make sure I make that connection with them. Next, so this student took a different approach. Before they chose a major, they chose a mission. The mission he chose meant a lot to him. He wanted to end world hunger. Choosing his mission was motivating and gave him a lot of new ideas for majors. Ultimately, he decided to study supply chain management to minimize food waste. By the end of his research, he had more clarity, felt more motivated, and felt more confident in his choice. How do you think this approach could help you? So let's break this down. In the purple here text, I'm sharing the story, a specific example to make this concept come to life. In orange, I'm sharing the benefits of the approach because I want the student to pay attention if these are benefits that they want. And I want them to know what's in it for them if they do engage in mission before major. And then finally, how do you think this approach could help you? I want the student to already tell me before we've even started doing this, whether or not they think this could be helpful for them. Because if it's not a fit, well, let's move on to something else. And if they do think it could be helpful, determining this beforehand will help make the exercise more effective than just simply asking this afterwards. Okay, we've done a custom intro. We've shared a story, and our buy-in question was, how do you think this approach could help you? So I'm sharing the mechanics with you, showcasing the value. Next, I want to tell you about how we could help them explore, how we could help them choose a prototype mission. But before that, I want to pause, and I'd love to hear from you in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself. How do you think this approach could benefit your students? Would you mind writing to me? I'd love to know your thoughts. Maybe this is one of the reasons you came, because you thought it could help your students. So I'm going to write in the chat, how could choosing a mission before a major help your students? And in the meantime, if there's a volunteer that wants to raise their hand or unmute, I'd love to hear your perspective. Thanks, Brittany. It could keep pathways options open. I agree. Could help them find new pathways and options as well, I think I would add. David, it integrate heart and head in the planning process. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I find that if you were to assess most of the tools, it feels like there's a lot of analytical head tools in careers, right? Decision making, but adding the heart to intuition, I feel like we have a bit less of that, so this could help. Judith, you made the connection to deeply held values. Why is that? Well, you're gonna pick a mission that it turns out is connected to your values, aren't you? So that would be a great exercise to surface that as well. Jackie, reduce anxiety. It's funny you say that because it's not easy. I don't think that a student could come up with a mission right away. It would take some work. Yet, going through that process, discovering options, being connected to themselves, I would agree, would reduce anxiety. I would feel anxious if I was studying biomechanical engineering and I had no idea what it led to. That leads to my anxiety. So maybe declaring the mission of how I'm going to use that degree, that would help. Nicola, motivation for learning and exploring what they don't know. Well, that's important. Thank you. Brittany, less prescriptive and more organic. Oh, that's good. I like the word organic there. I'm going to think about that. Jackie, it could assist students in becoming more engaged in a program they're already in. That's a good point that we haven't mentioned yet. You know, the examples I'm giving is someone who has no idea what they want to do. But this may be an appropriate intervention for someone who's already happy in their major, but they would like a career development boost. Where am I going with this? They could declare their major, their mission after having picked their major. I think that makes sense. Ingrid shares allows for multiple entry points to career paths. You're right, because once you pick a mission, there's a lot of different ways to contribute to that mission. Jackie, help them see the small steps they can take towards their goal before obtaining a degree. Great point. Much more appealing to Gen Z. That's what I'm seeing as well, David, that they're motivated in this way. Kate, help students study something of interest to them instead of what they think they should study. would allow for more exploration of subject. Post-secondary has many more subject than high school. You're right on all counts. Celeste, as others are saying, helps them take ownership. That's one of my favorite ones. And I think that's what they need to succeed in the world of work. Ownership levels of your career are, it's not something you want to delegate to companies anymore. And if you can give them a small, powerful experience of ownership at this stage, you're setting them up for more success later on. Thanks, everyone. These comments are great. Keep them coming. Krista, helps them develop a vision for their life. Yeah, because that mission can be pretty big. For some people, it's their why. It's why they get up in the morning. For other people, it's not, right? It's maybe their family that drives them. For some people, it's a hybrid. But you can definitely take it there for sure. Jackie, I work with a lot of post-secondary students who feel they've made the wrong choice. Yeah, that's tough. That's what I see in the stats as well, Jackie, that a lot of folks feel like they picked the wrong major. This morning I saw a stat from Brainstorm Research Group here in Canada, and I think the stat was 67 or in the low 60s, the amount of students that felt like they made the right choice. So that leaves a whole bunch who didn't. Michelle, helps them connect and envision what their contribution to the world community would be. Yes, love it. Macy, not only helps them plan for here and now, but also their long-term future and inspiring growth for their future. This is a duality of what we need to do as career professionals, career advisors. We need to help them plan for now and for later. And Michelle adds, this foundation of career development, this is a perspective that will serve them well evolve in their careers. I love these comments. This is, you've added way more benefits that I initially scoped out, and I love what you've chosen. So thank you for sharing that. Let's move on. I want to talk about the mechanics of how we could do this if we do want to do this. To me, you start by exploring. And how do you explore? Well, we're in the world, we're surrounded by challenges, problems, and opportunities. But if our students aren't looking for them, it's possible that they would see none of them. So I like helping students explore these challenges through different resources. Let me share a few with you. And I think this is worth taking a look at. This summer at NCDA, I presented about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals with another career developer called Candy Ho, and she's done some great work around using these United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as a prompt for career exploration. And it's such a fast, easy thing to do. So literally, if you're curious about this, tomorrow morning, maybe you want to show a student the UN SDGs and ask them to pick their favorite one. And then to tell you, well, why is climate action important for you? Why would you like to reduce inequalities? Tell me about that. How do you want to contribute to that? Why is zero hunger an interest for you? You'll notice that these aren't worded in complete missions, but let's call it the beginning of a mission. And I think it's a very powerful tool. So that's one resource that you can use right away, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Let me give you another one. And I love how it gave me a beautiful full screen, but now I feel stuck. Just give me a second here. I like that full screen option, but it's a little bit too big, too overwhelming. Okay, the next tool I want to tell you about is the challenge cards. That's the tool that we developed at SparkPath. The challenge cards, a set of 29, and David, you got them there up. I love it. Thanks, David. This is a quick and easy way to help students discover a new way of exploring, right? Do you want to redesign the healthcare system? Or do you want to communicate ideas and emotions? Maybe you want to invent new biotechnology or prepare future leaders. This is one tool that you have access to do that. And that's the tool that fuels really my mission, which is helping young people reach their potential. And we call it the challenge cards. We've got a physical version and a digital version. Another tool I want you to think about, it used to be called Innocentive. They very, very recently changed their name to Wazoku. And what I like about this platform is that the problems that it gives you are real world problems that companies have asked for help with. Let me give you an example. This is a challenge where this organization wants suggestions, ideas for low cost in-field sensors for greenhouse gas emissions. Very specific, right? Most of these challenges have a cash prize, 20,000, 15,000. If I was a high school teacher, I would be looking at these challenges and saying, well, I wonder if I can teach my curriculum by getting students to bid on one of these challenges. I don't know if the intent would be to win the $20,000, but it would just be to make the curriculum come to life in a very unique, practical way. I love proving to students that there are problems to solve in the world. And I can't think of a better proof than, $20,000 cash prize. How would this be used for a career advisor? I don't think in the same way as a high school teacher, but you may want to look regularly on the site to see what are the challenges that are available, and is there anything that's related to the subjects that my students are studying, and maybe you give some good examples. So that's one tool. I've got another one for you, one last one. I like following this organization called 80,000 Hours. The spirit behind what they do is they want students to have more purpose in their careers, specifically for social good. So most of their missions are socially focused. It's about helping others. And in this page, they share their world's most pressing problems, and they regularly update them, by the way. So right now, they're talking a lot about the risks from artificial intelligence, pandemics, building their effective altruism movement, which is about giving for good, figuring out what global priorities they should work on, nuclear war. So this is, to me, is pretty fascinating stuff. And I know that students like to see these challenges come alive. So this is a practical way to show them it's real. There are real problems to solve in the world. Okay, once you've had them explore, they have to pick 2 or 3 favorite problems. You can't start with 5. I think it's too much. If they do pick 5, you have to find themes in common, and that's part of your expertise. You're really good at seeing themes and patterns or helping students detect them. But eventually you want to pick 2 or 3. And I think it's easier when you start with 1. Eventually you have 1. I've decided I want to design the future of transportation, because then it gives you a chance to explore more. At this point, I'd like to bring up some similarities and differences between the word mission and challenges. If you've been to a webinar of mine before, you know that I like the word challenges. Sometimes I say problems or opportunities. The word mission is different than what I typically talk about. I think it adds a new element. So what's the similarity? Mission and challenges, to me, are both unique windows into the labor market, the world of work that students could get excited about. That's what they have in common. It's not the same thing as picking a job title. It's more fun, gives you more depth, helps you see the bigger picture, broadens horizons. It usually involves the interdisciplinary nature of work. How are they different? In my mind, the challenge focuses on the problem or the opportunity, whereas the mission is more focused on the solution. One challenge could lead to several different missions, and one mission could feature several different challenges and obstacles. So that's what I wanted to call out at this stage as we talk about how we explore more. So we've showcased the value of choosing a mission to a prospective student. We've helped them explore resources and even pick one. That's the next step. How do you choose a prototype mission, and how do you explore it even further? Well, this is a fun part because they get to decide a prototype. You know from your experience that students will resist this stage. They don't want to pick just one. They don't want to pick for the rest of their lives. Thank goodness you could tell them that they're allowed to change. The goal is not to lock in one mission for life. They do not need to get a tattoo of their mission on their arm. Instead, the goal is to practice tackling a mission so they can get better at it. So you pick one to practice. It's a prototype mission. Once they've chosen this prototype mission, then they can dive deeper. Which companies are ending extreme poverty? Who works there? What did they need to learn to be able to do that? That might give them ideas for majors. I like to look at it more broadly than majors. They should think about the skills, knowledge, and experience they need to contribute to that mission. And that gives them a purpose. Here's why I'm learning these skills. Here's why I'm working so hard. Here's why I'm in school. I'm going to level up so I can contribute more to this mission than I could today. And for your students that do not know which major to pick, this could lead them to new ideas. I think someone suggested that in the comments earlier. Okay, so those were the 3 steps. You've already answered this question for me. How would choosing a mission before a major? So I'm going to ask you a different question at this stage. If you were to introduce this concept to your students, how do you think they would react? That's what I want to know from you. How would your students react? And for this question, would you mind being very candid with us? You're amongst peers here. Most of the folks on this call work with students. So you can share positive reactions, negative reactions. You could share comments. You could share resistance. How would your students react to this activity of picking a mission before a major? I'll give you a second to think about it. And if it's easier, I don't know what your communication style is, but if you maybe instead of typing, you'd rather share just voice to voice, feel free to raise your hand or unmute. That's always fun as well. I'll share Michelle's comment in the meantime. Great framework, JP. Choosing a prototype mission action items bear so much relevance to networking to explore different career paths. Yeah, that's a good connection because I think eventually after you choose that mission, networking will be part of your next steps for research. Krista, that's the classic question, isn't it, that we're all fighting against. So you say they would love it. Oh, that's great. It sounds like it's worth trying out then. Anika, I think some folks find hope and curiosity in it. Wow, those are 2 powerful words. Hope, curiosity. Others might be anxious about the fact that it's too broad or doesn't have concrete steps to choosing a degree. They might say, well, this is all well and great, but I still need to choose a degree and major. I agree, Anika, and this is not the approach for the fastest. This is not we're not going to win on speed with this approach, right? If the student wants to win on speed, I'm sure there's an online quiz somewhere that they can do in 3 minutes flat that will match them to a major. Even doing the Holland codes might give them some ideas there. This one's going to take a little bit longer, and I think the anxiety will dissipate once they have more concrete options. This is the tricky part with our career, isn't it? Like, we're trying to convince students what's the return on investment with taking a little bit more time to choose your major. And that comes in our language, doesn't it? And how we sell the idea to them. David, you say easy, they would enjoy it. It would engage them immediately. That's great. I sure hope so. Jackie, it depends on the maturity level of the student. Some are overwhelmed by world problems, others are excited by them. That's a good point here. And I wanted to make a point about this, Jackie, because I tend to focus on, I don't know if I focus on world problems, but I talk a lot about world problems. Designing the future of transportation, that's a world problem. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, those are world problems. So I talk about big, ambitious missions because I think that excites a certain type of student. Having said that, Jackie, you're right. For some students, it will do the opposite. So I think it's very appropriate here to showcase, remember that story that I used in the pitch before? If you have a student that fits this persona that might be overwhelmed by world problems, could you share a story of a mission that's narrower in scope? What's a more beautiful way of saying that? A more specific mission, a local mission. It doesn't need to be on a global scale. That's only for certain types of students, right? You might have a student that wants to build furniture that lasts. Think about like a hyper-specific niche entrepreneur with a Shopify store that wants to change the way people buy pocket knives. I just made that up, but come on, like there's somebody out there that has that niche of a mission, and it's very specific. So I'm guilty of this. I can get caught up in big missions, but I need to offer a different flavor of missions for that type of student. I don't know, Jackie, if that's the same way you see it or if it's different, but anyways, thanks for your prompt. It was helpful to remember that student. Celeste, I think that they would revisit initially because it was not the mindset of what they were used to. They will need encouragement. Yeah, resist. That's what I was thinking you said too. Yeah, I think so too. I think for some students, you just give them this idea and flat out they're ready to run with it. But for most, you'll need to push back on the job title mindset. You'll need to push back on the traditional approach of you like biology in high school, you study biology, in university. They're used to very linear connections, and we need to break that apart for them, because when we break it apart, it frees them for so much more, so much more. Michelle, as a parent and not an educator, I think my son will be really interested in it. It's real where majors are out there and hard to make a connection to what kids will do with that major. Oh, I see. It's real. Like the mission is real. I like that language. Like I sometimes I call it proof. Proof in the sense that like there's real money in the innocentive challenges, right? The UN Sustainable Development Goals are known all over the world. To me, that's really good proof. Macy, I think some students would freeze, and I think some students would thrive with this mission. This allows them to be creative and take ownership of their futures. I think this also provides students with jobs at all skill levels where they still contribute. Yeah, because there's a lot of different ways to contribute, right? To a specific mission, there's so many different ways. Joan, local missions might appeal to students in more rural areas because they can identify with them more easily. And it might be easier for you, Joan, if you're helping kids in rural areas, because your examples, your stories, the companies you're promoting and showcasing, they might have, let's call them local missions. That's good. That's probably the word I was looking for earlier, a local mission. That's really good. Thank you for that, Joan. Okay, a few more principles here because we've got this cool idea, and I think our job is you add an asterisk. Wait, but, wait, if, wait, what about this student? Wait, what about the size of mission? What about this? So let's add a few more here, principles that we can play with. I thought about these before our call. I think the value of planning for a mission is more important than the plan. What does that mean? The exercise of setting a prototype mission, of choosing, of learning how to research it. This is more important than the actual choice of mission. This is something that people miss. It's a very similar principle in business planning. Some people laugh at, oh, your business plan, it's not going to work. It's going to change a lot. The value wasn't in the plan, the output itself. It was in the planning exercise and the thinking that went through it. I think the same principle is true here. Second, earlier I said prototype mission. Maybe that resonates with you. Another phrase I thought about is mission in the moment, which just means I want you to pick a mission in this moment. What's your mission right now? And it can change in the future. And why would we want it to change? Well, I'm hoping that your grade 12 biology class, I'm hoping that your second year in computer science, I'm hoping that your education experience is so rich that you discover a new mission, that you go deeper in your mission, that you discover a new tool or technique or discipline that could help you tackle your mission. These are great reasons for a mission to change. A third principle is that your major should give you breadth and depth. What this means is that you should have some core learning that's directly related and connected to what you're trying to do. Maybe that's the depth. And breadth would be optional courses for seemingly disconnected things that could help you contribute in a unique and unexpected way. I don't know if I explained that well, but let me try again, okay? A famous example of this is when Steve Jobs, the little amount of time that he spent in college, one of the things that he did was he took, I believe, a calligraphy course. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but he learned about type. And it turns out that throughout his technology career, one of the things that he was uniquely gifted at was visual elements of design. And he put so much thought and energy into the type in calligraphy of all of Apple's tools, especially the first versions of it, the Mac. This class was not connected seemingly to any practical application. Yet, later in life, it did have a connection to his ultimate mission, which is, I don't know the best words, but making computing easy or user design or very friendly. Like, he helped revolutionize technology, and that seemingly unconnected course had a huge impact on him, and I would put that in the breadth category. Okay, 3 principles on picking a mission. I think that if you were to develop a workshop for your students on picking a mission before a major, you would likely add 7 more principles to this list. So I hope that's a useful prompt for you to think about what principles you should apply when using this approach. Here's a beautiful comment that I got on the LinkedIn post, the original LinkedIn post I want to read to you. Teresa said, "I'm on a mission to turn my dad's oil patch into my daughter's energy garden. But when I was going to university, I think my mission would have been, well, lamer. I wanted a job connected to the many things I enjoy the most: mountain biking, skiing. I applied to as many companies as possible that made bikes and skis, but no one wanted me. My application to Shell was an attempt to at least get a job in my hometown close to biking and skiing. That job has led to a career arc and mission that are deeply fulfilling." So all that to say, I like the concept, but I wouldn't necessarily be too concerned if articulating the end mission feels impossible at moments, or if that mission changes as we grow. I agree with her feeling, and if you look, like 17 people liked her comment on the page, so this certainly struck a chord with people. And I think there's a few reasons why. Maybe you could tell me in the chat why this resonated with people, and tell me if it resonated with you or not. But I think that articulating a mission might feel impossible or difficult to most people. It's not an easy thing to do, especially without the mechanics of how do you do that. I would hate to ask a student, what's your mission? It's a difficult question, even for an entrepreneur that leads a company. It's something that you need to think about and invest time and energy in. However, through a simple process, I believe our field, career development, career advisors, can make this task that seemingly would look impossible and very difficult to do, split it up into small bites and make it very accessible to intimidated high school students who are anxious about their future. I think that's one of your secret powers, is you can make this accessible, usable, even if you face some initial resistance from some students. That's my hope. I'm encouraged because I think this is already happening, or rather I know it's already happening in different places. There's a unique private university in Canada called Quest that wants students to build their degree around the questions. Excuse me, this shouldn't say the questions, it's the question. And that's their language for a challenge or a mission. It's a question that they pose that they're interested in the world, and then they build their degree around some core courses and some elective courses that's going to help them answer their question. That's already happening. It's pretty fascinating. Another comment on LinkedIn was about the Volcker Alliance, who empowers and inspires public servants. And this is from Sammy. She says that she used this concept at Arizona State University, the Public Service Academy, for students. And it was part of their interdisciplinary program. A part of the program included defining a social mission. And she was part of this cohort, and she found it was a new way to consider how learning and growing helps the social mission topic and how it relates to their career goals. So I think this was pretty interesting as well. Okay, in the comments, Andrea adds, "I talked to my students about how your mission won't only be fulfilled through paid work. I asked them to think about designing their life. Where does work fit into the bigger picture?" I think that's important because if you don't add what Andrea adds, I think some students might feel pressured to get all of their fulfillment from that mission and from their working life. And I think we wouldn't be setting up people for success if we pretended that. I know, Rich, you're always good at talking about this, you know, it's more than career, it's about life. So thanks, Andrea, for telling. I bet a lot of your students would love hearing that because maybe they haven't heard that before. Nicole, I think it's good to acknowledge career arcs and evolution. I'm on version 4 of my career. Great point. Personally, Nicole, I want to live to 101, so I'm planning on a lot of career arcs and evolution. Annika, I love that approach. Andrea. Lorna, we must consistently underestimate how much we will change in the future. So think that it makes sense to a 3, 5, 10-year plan to avoid the arrival fallacy. I encourage students to create intentions instead of plans to help them feel more comfortable with the idea that what they value and need will change over time. Wow, you blew my mind with that, Lorna. Okay. We consistently underestimate how much we will change. In writing the Challenge Mindset book, Lorna, I've seen the same research that you've seen likely. And you called it the arrival fallacy, which I have not heard before. What I've heard before, Laura, was human beings are, what is it? I might not get this right, but it sounds something like human beings are projects that think they're finished, when really like we're always a work in progress. So this really aligns with the way that you said. And you decided to change the language for your students to intentions instead of plans. And I think that could be a powerful shift because it takes them out of this space of locking in something for the long term. Instead, it's much lighter to have an intention. Thanks for adding that. That's fantastic. Andrea, work as a soulmate. Yeah, Rich, you're welcome. Career was much more than a job. Career is about navigating a lifetime of transition in each of the good life, each phase, each step of the good life. Yes, thank you. Great point. Michelle, not only will we change, but our world will change, which will open up new opportunities for consideration. Yeah, this gets me really excited to talk about, Michelle, because just like Lorna said, we underestimate how much we will change. We underestimate how much the world will change. I really like an author called Nicholas Nassim Taleb, who wrote books called The Black Swan and Anti-Fragile. And the idea with the Black Swan is that his argument is that the most important driver of change in the world are unpredictable events. He calls these black swans. This is based on the story that no one thought that there was such a thing as a black swan until you saw one, and it was not possible to predict. And this is going to be the reality for our students who are going to have 50, 60, 70-year careers. We're dramatically extending lifespan, so we can anticipate a lot of change, and technology is speeding up that change. All the more reason to set intentions rather than plans. And Jackie, you add, start where you are from the Designing Your Life school at Stanford, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. Thank you. I like that approach as well. And I mentioned them in the book. Here's a comment from Julie, and I can't remember who, but someone in the chat had almost the same idea. She says, I really like this thinking. I wonder if as a first step, university programs could start encouraging students to develop missions within their majors. I think that makes sense. And I think that's what we do with the challenge cards and the challenge mindset. The schools that subscribe to our digital challenge cards, they help students make meaning out of their majors, right? And they help them connect majors with challenges to solve. I think that's fantastic. Having prepared for this webinar, though, I wonder if we're going far enough. I wonder if we're pushing hard enough collectively. I think the idea of choosing a mission before a major is bolder than this idea, this suggestion that Julie has. This is the safer idea. This is meeting students where they're at in their current degree. I think this affects more students, but I think a bolder, more provocative approach is starting with the mission before the major. I don't know how practical of an idea it is. You'll have to let me know, like how would that even work logistically? But it is a very exciting idea to think about. I'm going to add here a few reasons why students might struggle with this, and I want you to add to the list, please, because you're going to have a lot of insights here why students would struggle, and you've already shared some, to be fair, in the chat in regards to anxiety and expectations. I mentioned this one earlier. Students are coming to see you with a very high commitment to job title or major. I need to pick a job title, I need to pick a major. They're looking at the world as a very linear, through a linear lens. I also think this is intimidating for students because they just don't know, like what does a mission even look like? Tell me, they might need to know examples of missions. They don't even know the problems, challenges, and opportunities. They need to learn about these problems, challenges, and opportunities before they can believe they can choose a mission, that this will work for them. Also, doing this alone, I think, would be a huge reason why they would struggle. Without a career advisor, without a counselor, without someone like you by their side, without a coach, it might be difficult to transition from their old way of thinking. Okay, few more context here. It would be interesting to have a mission. Have a first year where you choose a mission and choose courses that fit with them to explore the breadth and depth of that mission. Then from their majors are developed. I think so many schools that offer the opportunity to be undeclared, that would be a great move for them, Annika, wouldn't it? You know, if you're undeclared, well, we want you to have a question that you want to solve, or a challenge you're working on, or a mission. It might focus your efforts. I think that would be quite useful. And then Michelle, classic comment, right? We want parents to think this way. Why? Because most students, their number one influence is parents in their lives when it comes to careers. So we want to make the shift for them as well. The knowledge would allow them to support their kids as they make decisions. You're right. Even this whole talk that we have about keeping things lighter, intentions versus plans, that's a very useful message for parents. Okay, here we are. We're at the end of our time together. Here's my big question for you. How can you use this approach? How could you integrate the mission before major approach in your work? I'd love your thoughts. I don't know if this where you're at with this, right? How can you integrate the mission before major? Can you literally organize a workshop that you will run on February 2nd where all your students will live this and love it? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe yes. Is this something you're going to bring up at your next lunch and learn with your internal group, just as a provocative idea to get them thinking differently about the future? I'd love to know where you're at and how you could use this. Please keep the comments coming. Ingrid, we don't have an undeclared major. We use exploratory. It's such a great word title to use. Another language shift, right? So Ingrid, it's not called undeclared. I think undeclared, it does have a negative connotation. It's kind of like lacking power, isn't it? Exploratory, there's a purpose. There's a reason I'm doing this. I'm exploring. Jackie, I think a career map plan is so important at the beginning of a program that has already been declared and is in progress at the post-secondary level. Mission thinking would totally help. We could do workshops on this. If you do, please let me know, Jackie. I'd be glad to help in any way. Of course, please feel free to use my slides if you found them helpful, but I'd love if you circle back and I could update the group on what you've been doing. But I definitely see this as a workshop. What's the benefit to the workshop for me is you pitch it as mission before major, and you only attract the students that would resonate with, right? So that's a huge benefit from doing the workshop format. Macy, I believe that if we start with this approach as students are younger, that it may lessen the difficulty when it's almost too late for them to begin to feel the pressure of just needing to declare a major. Completely agree with you. I also think changing the stigma behind an undeclared major would prompt more creativity for exploration. That's a great point. Oh, hi, Rose. Nice to see you. I also think that they struggle to make this shift because our education system does not give them enough experiences that require them to apply their learning to impact the community world around them. So there's an assumption. Here's an assumption that we haven't brought up. It's 4:53, and it's just coming out now, so thanks, Rose. The assumption is that the world needs you. If a student doesn't know that the world needs them, if they think the world doesn't need them, it might be more difficult to consider doing a mission, right? And I think that your expertise is meeting students who think the world doesn't need them. Haven't you met a bunch in your career? They show up to you and they believe the world doesn't need them, right? Rose, they become consumers of information, don't feel empowered to create a real change. That's a trend that's reinforced by social media. I agree. Nicole, I plan on using the challenge cards with grade 7 and 8 students to have them start thinking in terms of what problem they want to solve for the world and who they want to be. Okay, so Nicole, on behalf of all the post-secondary advisors on this call who, are grateful for you because the students that they will see in 5 years and 7 years are going to be so much wiser because of you, Nicole. Thank you. We appreciate it. And Michelle is echoing that as well. So how can kids then make the connection between their mission? Sorry, I missed the question, Michelle. Please feel free to elaborate or add on, but I might have just missed it. How can kids then make the connection between their mission and school programs available?
I'll
Yeah.
just come on, JP.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
So I was more thinking like once, you know, a child student like has an idea of, okay, what kind of problems in the world do I want to solve? Then when they are making their choices then like with schools that they can go to and programs that they can enroll in, what is the connection? How will they know what selections to make based on the problems that they want to solve?
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? So is the student example we're doing like someone in high school, for example?
You know, I'm completely asking this one as a parent because
Yeah.
I'm not in the school system. So
My favorite way is to see what's already being done out there. So the technique I usually use is I'm going to find companies working on that challenge. I'm going to work backwards. Challenge, companies. I'm going to visit the website of those companies. I'm going to find who works there. I'm going to look them up on the company website. I'm going to look them up on LinkedIn, and then look at what were their majors. This is one of my favorite ways of doing it because it worked with one of the first students that I career coached. It's Anna from the TEDx talk. And through that process of flipping the model, we discovered material science and engineering. This is not going to work for every student, but it works for so many students.
okay.
And I think just doing that flip model approach, have you seen that already, Michelle?
You know what? I haven't. Was that one of your earlier slides?
No, that's just an example from the TEDx, which I can send you, or if you could just Google like the challenge mindset TEDx.
Oh, sure.
Like
Okay.
a real student, and that's how she made the connection. I think that's one great way of doing it because it makes it come to life. You might have other students, Michelle, that they'll just know off the cuff. Like you already told me you're interested in psychology and business. How could psychology and business help you solve world hunger? And just that's going to be enough for them. That I think that's fine and it works, but I really love teaching them the research skills that goes on the other side. So that's what I would recommend.
That's great. Thanks, JP.
Thank you for jumping on. Okay, Alex just shared the TEDx. Hey, I want to take a moment before we all have to sign off here in a minute to say thank you for showing up. I have a feeling that you show up because you really care about your students. You really want to set them up for success. You're looking for alternative ways of doing things. And I hope you discovered one today. Thanks for your curiosity. I'd love if you followed up with me to tell me I'm using the mission before major approach. Here's how it's going, because I'd love to keep the conversation going. I think it's a very powerful one. Thanks, Rich, for the comment. You're saying you use the challenge cards in all job and career transition coach certification trainings, and thank you. 8,000 grads, and they love them. Moving from jobless to focus on how the narrow focus of job can be. To me, it simulates scanning one's local environment to find needs and connect it to their ability to find value and stay motivated. That's fantastic. Yeah, because at that point, once you have a mission or a challenge, all of the self-awareness work that we're so good at, like Rich, for example, works on a tool called U-Science, which speaks to students' abilities. Then you can make these abilities come to life. You show why they're useful. They can help solve this problem. They can help solve this challenge. So I think it's a great shift in language. Hey, Jackie, my pleasure. I'm glad you'll be getting the cards. You're going to join a huge community of people who are using this, Jackie, to change the way we do career development. So I appreciate your help. And David, I plan on creating gamified online learning curriculum activities around picking a problem to solve that can be delivered at scale for students and become a vital, intriguing part of their formal digital career plan portfolio. Wow, David, that's a powerful sentence. That sounds like your mission right now. And it's a great way to end the call. Huge thank you to all of you. A quick book update. The Challenge Mindset book is currently in the hands of a few selected beta readers. I hope to submit the final version of the book before Christmas, and then it should be published 3 to 6 months after that, when I hope it will be in your hands so that you can use it as a tool. So huge thank you for all of you. I appreciate you being here. It means a lot to me. And let's stay in touch. Hope you have a great evening. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming. Thanks, everybody. Aptitudes. Aha. Yeah, that's better. Thanks, Rich. Thanks for coming, everybody. Hey, Daryl, thanks for joining. Hey, Nicola, I haven't met her yet, but yeah, I'd love to. Great comments here. This is a chat that I'd like to save because the comments were very, very rich. Thanks for coming, Joan. Nicola, did you have a good silent retreat?
Mm-hmm.
That's
I'm
great.
still practicing it.
Oh, good. That's fantastic.
I'd
I'm
love
gonna
to
stop
learn
the
more about her career maps. Because
Yeah,
I've been playing with some ideas too. Do
great. Yeah,
you,
I'll
have
make a
you
connection for
ever,
you.
could you have a minute?
Yeah, I'm gonna stop the record button. Thanks everybody for coming. Thank you.